for the Strollers, the community theater in residence at the Bergdorf Cultural Center in Maplewood. And the reason we're here to speak with you today is to talk about their upcoming production of Clybourne Park by Bruce Norris. The show will be performing November 7th, 8th, 9th, 14th, and 15th. The Fridays and Saturdays will be at 8 p.m. and the Sunday matinee will be at 2 p.m. Also, on the opening night performance, the 7th, there will be a question and answer period after the performance led by a Doctor of American Studies from Seton Hall University, and we'll be talking about how culture, African American culture, has been affected in our country since the Civil Rights Movement. And also the Sunday matinee will be sign language interpreted for the hearing impaired. If you'd like ticket information, you can call the box office 973-761-8453 or visit the Stroller website www.thestrollers.org or email us at themaplewoodStrollers@gmail.com. I will tell you the ticket prices for adults are $20 and students and seniors ticket prices are $15. Now I'm going to change hats a little bit as I am the director of this production. And I'd like to give you a little bit of background information on Clybourne Park. As I say, it was written by Bruce Norris and it's won a Pulitzer Prize. Clybourne Park is actually a housing neighborhood in Chicago. And the first act of the play takes place in 1959, and the second act of the play takes place in 2009, in the same neighborhood, in the same house. But that's about where the likenesses stop. If you remember in our country, in the 50s, the late 50s, it was segregated. And in 1959 and 1, the housing community there is not integrated. It's predominantly white. So I'm going to take it an act at a time. We're going to talk to the actors who are here with us today, and they'll tell you a little bit about what their character's about and what the show is about. So in 1959, the house is owned by a couple named Russ and Beverly. And a tragedy has happened in this house, and so they're looking to sell the house. And they don't care who they sell it to, or how fast they sell it, or how much money they get for the house. They just want out of the neighborhood. And then some of the people from the Housing Coalition Association for Clybourne Park come to tell them that their house has in fact been sold to a black family. So that's the catalyst for the action in Act 1. And I'm going to start at the end with Jim Coe, who in Act 1 plays Carl. Jim, why don't you tell us a little bit about your character and about what happens with you and to you in Act 1?
Sure. So Carl, as Cindy mentioned, is a member of the community around Clybourne Park who's known Russ and Beverly for several years. He is married to Betsy, they're expecting a child, and he's a very traditional man from the 50s. He's a Rotarian, he's on the board, he's a very strong-willed and opinionated fellow who gets very offended by the notion that there's a black family moving into his neighborhood of Clybourne Park. He sees it as a threat, and he wants to clean up any possibility of an African American influence in his community before the problem even begins. Obviously, he's not the most sympathetic character, but he has a viewpoint, and right or wrong, he believes what he believes and tries his best to get the people that he has called friends, the people who he has spent years of his life with, to join him in his viewpoint and really fix what he sees as a wrong in his society, in his community. And he tries to enlist Russ and Beverly, tries to appeal to their sensibility through some past tragedies that both families have suffered that we as an audience start to learn about as the scene in the play goes on. And then he appeals to Jim, who Chris plays, who's one of the ministers in the area who helped them through a tough time, and finds out pretty quickly that he's a man unto himself, that there is not an overwhelming sense of agreement in the community with his way of thinking. So he's a man almost lost to a time. He's a hanger-on when the prevailing attitudes have started to move past him. And it's a fascinating character. It's a great opportunity, and I'm excited for everyone to get to see it.
Now, we should say that there's an interesting correlation between your character in this play and in another play that was written by Lorraine Hansberry, A Raisin in the Sun, in that the family in A Raisin in the Sun, if you'll remember, purchases a house at the end of the play. And they, in fact, what the playwright has done in this play has, the storyline is that the house that they have purchased in A Raisin in the Sun is in fact this house. And if you'll remember in A Raisin in the Sun, a character from the Community Association, Community Housing Association in Clybourne Park, come to visit the family in A Raisin in the Sun to talk them out of purchasing the house. And that character is Carl Widner. And it just so happens that the playwright has decided to put Carl Widner in this play and continue to see the other side of that storyline here in this play. Just wanted to point that out to everyone. And let's talk to Meg next. Meg Whalen is playing Betsy in Act 1, and Betsy's a very interesting character. Number one, the interesting thing about Betsy is that she's deaf. There are not that many plays in the Broadway community that that incorporate deaf characters. So this is a very, very special case. And also note from the character of Betsy is that she's going to have a baby. So, Meg, why don't you tell us a little bit about Betsy?
Betsy has been fun to play. A woman of a few words, but she does speak, and she does have a voice for someone of her kind of lot in life, being deaf, being in the 1950s woman, and is very deferential to her husband, Carl, who is a very strong character for her. So she often has to obviously take the back seat, which is the role of women at that time. But she does stand up for herself and does make herself heard when she feels that he's sort of going a little bit too far, and she kind of wants to keep the peace in the house as much as possible with kind of tensions that are arising during this play in this living room of this house. She has lost a baby in the past, and she's very far along in the pregnancy when we meet her, and she is sort of just concentrating on the joys of what will be. I think she is looking at this baby is going to kind of be everything that she has in life, and it's going to be the main focus for her life. So she is just trying to keep the peace with Carl, with the neighbors, and just focus on the happiness of the new life.
Great. Next we have Chris Farah. Chris is playing Jim in Act 1. And what can you tell us about the character of Jim?
Jim is the local pastor, and he obviously has deep roots in the community. He knows pretty much every family around there. One gets the sense that it's very much a tight-knit community of one ethnicity, and Jim has made it a point to get to know everybody and to get to know everybody's business. He obviously was involved, as Jim said, when the tragedy befell Russ and Bev, and he's one of those kind of trying to jolly everyone along kind of characters. He's obviously he cares for his community, but he's still very much a product of the 50s. He's tried to be involved in the African American community. We hear at one point that he's taken fellowship in an African American church, but he's still very much, he's of that ethnicity, and he really doesn't have much experience outside of his ethnicity, and he's trying to come to terms with this new changing world as much as everybody. He's a peacemaker, he's a man of the cloth, obviously. He wants to do the right thing, but he's not really sure how this new world is going to work.
We should mention that there are 7 characters in Act 1. There's Bev and Russ, and they're the people that own the home, who are selling the home, who get a visit from Carl, played by Jim, and Jim is trying to convince them not to sell. They also get a visit from Jim, the minister, played by Chris, because he ran into Beverly a few weeks ago in his, out and about in the community, and she has expressed that after 2 years, it's 2 years since the tragedy occurred in their family. And I'm not trying to be secretive, but I don't want to give it away because that's part of the fun of coming to see the show. And when he met with Beverly in the community, she still expressed that after 2 years, her husband is still having quite a difficult time coming to terms with what has happened. And it's been very, very difficult for her. Also, there are the characters of Francine and Albert in the act. Now, Francine and Albert are African American, and Francine happens to work for Russ and Beverly. She is their maid. And unfortunately, when the drama starts to happen, Francine and Albert are sort of pulled into it by Carl, and to a degree by Jim. And it kind of ends up in sort of an explosive, rather thought-provoking, heart-wrenching, ending of what happens to these people in this act. And you get the feeling of, for people at least my age and perhaps younger, what it was like to be growing up in the country at that time in 1959. I was not born in the 1950s, so I don't recall what that was like. I don't recall a segregated country. So, what else happens in Act 1? That's about it.
And that's it. Yeah.
Did any of you experience any difficulties with these characters? Any lines or any particular story, like the whole storyline itself? Was it difficult for you? I mean, when you came to the audition, did you think, wow, this seems like a great show, but this seems very uncomfortable. I'm not really sure that I want to be part of this because I don't think I can do it? Or you read about the audition, you came and you thought, wow, this is great. This is what I want to be a part of. Anybody?
It's very edgy, thought-provoking material. I mean, this is not a comfortable play a lot of times. There's a lot of humor in it, but it's definitely very thought-provoking, and kind of makes you think where we've come from and where we are today. Not that long ago. I remember TV shows in England which were, oh my God, you can't imagine them today.
Right.
I think that's the most important part about the show, is that you can look at a play, really any piece of art, if it's a TV show, if it's a movie, if it's a play, and if it's going to tackle a serious topic, you want it to be competently tackled. You don't want a very easy, cheap portrayal of something of this serious magnitude. And this piece, I mean, you say it won the Pulitzer, it also won the Tony Award for Best Play. I mean, it's got awards to back it up. 12 Years a Slave came out last year. It was dealing with a serious topic and done with a gravity, with a thought for, let's do this with as much honor as we can. And so when you read Bruce Norris's play, you see he has fully realized this world. That's something that I respect incredibly about this piece. I knew once that it was selected for a production here that I wanted to audition for any of the roles that I could play, and because he has created this world. I mean, in the dialogue, they discuss Don Skinner, they discuss a Ted Driscoll, they discuss these people in this community that we are never going to meet as the play progresses. And they are fully realized characters with backstories. We know that Ted Driscoll's a great real estate agent, but maybe he's a little shady when it comes to his dealings versus the good of the community. We know that these people are very aware of what's going on at the time, and I think what's very interesting to me is you have Carl, who seems to be a man a little bit behind the times as far as progressing, who's very conservative in what he does, but then at the same time you have Russ, who is very ahead of the times socially and politically. He's not someone who, like his wife is clinging to religion, and he's not offended by the fact that there's an African-American family moving to his house. I think it's a very broad range of characters that deal really well with the topics at hand.
All right, we're going to take a short break, and we'll be back and we'll discuss Act 2 of Clybourne Park.
Once you're hit by a train, this is the size of bag that we'll use to collect what's left of you on the tracks.
It was a horrible tragedy that could have been averted if we had just stayed off the tracks.
I don't want to have to be the one that has to go tell your parents that you're dead.
Make the right choice. Stay off the tracks.
We're back. I'm Cindy Ross, director of the Strollers production of Clybourne Park here in Maplewood. Just wanted to give you the information again. It is performing November 7th, 8th, 14th, and 15th at 8 p.m. and November 9th at 2 p.m. at the Bergdorf Center for the Performing Arts, 10 Durand Road in Maplewood. For tickets, you can call our box office at 973-761-8453. Go to our website, www.thestrollers.org, or email us at themaplewoodStrollers@gmail.com. Now I want to move forward and talk a little bit about Act 2. Act 2, we do not meet any new actors, but we do meet new characters. All of the characters from Act 1, all of the actors from Act 1 are now in Act 2, and it's now 2009, 50 years later, and it is still the Clybourne Park section of Chicago. However, it has been integrated. 70s and 80s, 90s, not very terrific to the Clybourne Park neighborhood. Poverty, economic hard times, the drugs, gang. However, in 2000, in the early 2000s, the middle 2000s, there was a comeback. It started to become an up-and-coming neighborhood. Excuse me. And now, what had become a predominantly African-American community is becoming integrated with white America. So, the home from Act 1 has been purchased in 2009 by a white couple, and they're making renovations on the home. And again, the Clybourne Park Housing Community Association, Coalition, whatever you want to call it, has said to this white couple, we want to keep the historical integrity of the house, and all these changes that you're making, they're not in line with what we're thinking. So we need to meet with you, let's talk about this with our real estate lawyers and see if we can't all come to some kind of compromise. So, now our actors are playing these characters from 2009, and Chris Farrar plays Tom Driscoll, a real estate lawyer for the African-American couple who are representing the Clybourne Park Community Housing Association in 2009. So, Chris, tell us a little bit about Tom and about what's going on with him in Act 2.
So, as Cindy said, Tom is a lawyer. He's been engaged by the Homeowners Association, who are trying to preserve the integrity of their neighborhood, which is, as Cindy said, going through a lot of changes. But they're trying to establish guidelines that the houses stay within a certain framework, that the neighborhood keeps its same look and feel. no matter who moves into it. And Tom is there to represent the Homeowners Association and to make sure that nothing gets put through that would impact the look and feel of the neighborhood. Tom's a busy guy, and the action Act 2 takes place on a Saturday afternoon, which I kind of get the feeling that he's not real happy about because he's got somewhere else to be. He's busy, he's just getting phone calls from his office, he's constantly trying to juggle with his business with what's going on here. And as you see in Act 2, he's got to put up with a lot of nonsense. And he can't really believe that he's sitting there while this is all going on. For various reasons, has become apparent as the act progresses. But he's trying to, he's the stickler, he's got the language, he's got the verbiage of how this should all go down, and he keeps getting interrupted and sidetracked, and he's just more and more frustrated and just trying to maintain his calm and get out of there as quickly as possible. Do you want me to say anything else about Tom? Or I don't want to give too much away.
I think that's good. I think that's about right. Ben, what about the character that you play in Act 2?
Lindsay's a funny character. I think she represents, I think, a lot of the sort of mentality of a woman of that age in modern society, and I should say a woman who has been in a white society for most of her life. But what I've always related to with her is that she really kind of wants to be sort of, not ignorant, but sort of just kind of put the problems that racial relations that may exist in the world, kind of just say, but they don't really exist anymore. She wants to believe that that's all well and good, everyone's friends now, everything's fine, we can just kind of move on with life. But she sees in this experience with her neighbors and the association that maybe it's not that simple anymore, but you appreciate her drive to kind of just want to simplify life in that way. But at this point in 2009, she is a woman who is right on the level with her husband, and she will put him in his place when necessary, and she is going to take the lead in the conversations from the perspective of the building, so from a legal perspective. She's a professional, she has a job, she's a working woman, and so it's nice to see the way the role the wife has developed. She is also expecting a child, which puts her in a headspace that's a little bit stressed out. I think you see towards the end of the act, things are heated up, and she's ready to have this baby, and she has nowhere to live because they're in the middle of some major construction and haven't resolved the issues with the committee yet. So it's a definitely a fun character to play, and I feel like certainly related a lot to her kind of views on society and that feeling now in 2014 where you just want to say, hey, we all live together, everything's happy, but there are those backstories that we do have to recognize and take into account.
Now, again, as you pointed out, you spend the second act of this play pregnant again, and also I neglected to point out that you and Jim are the couple who is purchasing the home in this act.
Right.
As in Act 1, Jim was trying to block the purchase of the home. He is now purchasing it as a different character. What's it like to be pregnant for 2 hours on stage and not really be pregnant? I mean, we use on stage what we call a pregnancy pillow, which is actually exactly what it sounds like. It's a pillow that is, that has strings attached to it, and you tie it around your back, and you kind of wear it like an apron, but it's shaped like you're carrying a baby. So, have you worn a pregnancy pillow before?
Yeah, but I've been pregnant twice, so I definitely know the feeling. And I actually for some reason I enjoy being pregnant, so I actually enjoy wearing the belly. It brings me back to that feeling. But it's a really major prop. It's a major prop because you're always resting your arms on it. It really changes the whole way you feel. So I've definitely been practicing with the pillow from the beginning because it just changes the way you walk, the way the whole way you're positioning in your chair. But it's fun to have that prop with you at all times.
Cool to be able to take it off.
Yes, and that too. I think my neighbors think I'm crazy because when I walk out the door at night, they see me with a pet. Is she lying to her husband about something? What's going on over there?
All right, Jim, let's talk to you a little bit about your character in Act 2. You are now playing Steve, who's married to Lindsay. You've purchased this home, and now you come to meet with your lawyer. You and Lindsay have a lawyer named Kathy, who is portrayed by the same actor in Act 1 that played Beverly. So now she's a completely different character, and you're a completely different character. What's going on with Steve in this act?
Steve is a very fun character. Steve has a lot of strong personalities around him. In this second act, we have very strong women across the board. Every single woman in the second act has an opinion that she has, that she will make known, and Steve gets that a lot at home. I know from his wife, he's married a very strong woman, which I think is part of his attraction to her, was that she can speak for herself. She doesn't need him to handle her life. And now all of a sudden, there are 3 women, so I think he's someone who knows when to hold his tongue, and it's very fun watching him get closer and closer to losing it, and then losing it, and speaking out. He starts as the prototypical American guy in the 20th century, 21st century. He's smart, he's gone to college, he's aware of the way things are in society, and he knows the spoken and the unspoken rules, and he may have questioned them, but he can let it slide. He'll let things flow off of his back until he can't anymore. And that's when things really perk up for him in the second act. For as far as an exciting point of view, you know, it's a fun character. It really is. He gets to have a point of view. He gets to snipe at his wife, who he loves dearly, and then we get to find out as an audience what makes him tick, what drives him a little bit harder sometimes, and why they are the way they are. It's a fun character.
We should point out too that this show has adult language, and it is not appropriate for children under 12 years old. I'm not even sure it's appropriate for high school age children, but it is, in today's society, I guess anything goes. It's also full of a lot of uncomfortable moments. Things get said, things are implied, and you kind of sit there and you can just, I mean, as a director, after watching this for 6.5 weeks now, I'm still uncomfortable when they approach these things that are just, to me as a human being, make me uncomfortable. It makes me want to stand up and say, stop that, that's not right, can't we all just get along? And certainly Act 2, because times have changed so drastically since Act 1, it's almost as if everybody feels that they can just speak whatever's on their mind at any time. So that has its consequences as well as not speaking what you wanted to say, your mind in 1959 did. There are several jokes that get told in Act 2 that are very offensive and off color. So again, I would caution that you not bring children under 12. Again, my name is Cindy Ross. I'm the Publicity and Marketing Director for the Strollers, the community theater in residence at the Berkshire Center for the Performing Arts in Maplewood, New Jersey. We have an upcoming production of Clybourne Park, the Pulitzer Prize and Tony Award-winning play by Bruce Norris. It will be performed November 7th, 8th, 14th, and 15th at 8 p.m. and November 9th at 2 p.m. There's a Q&A after the opening night performance on the 7th from Dr. Pritchard at Seton Hall University's African American Studies group. And on Sunday, the 2 o'clock matinee, will be sign language interpreted for the hearing impaired. So, tickets for adults, $20, students, seniors, $15. Call 973-761-8453 to make your reservations. Visit our website, www.thestrollers.org, or send us an email at themaplewoodStrollers@gmail.com. Thank you all.